My name is Jack. I am the Rheumatology Physio. This webinar is going to be about juvenile idiopathic arthritis, and there's been a very nice review released in the New England Journal of Medicine that breaks down a lot of information about juvenile idiopathic arthritis, so I'm going to film an update here. There is likely a few ways that you're accessing this, so a little bit of information to you before we get started. If you are watching this on YouTube, then this will be a preview version, and you'll get the first few minutes of this available to you. If you go into the description below, then there will be a link to take you where you can access the full version, and that is the same as if you are watching this on my Substack, but you are not yet an upgraded member of the Substack or a member of my online course. So just scroll down and you'll be able to find how to unlock the full video. If you are, of course, a member of the online course already, then you'll be accessing this on my course website and you'll have no issues. If you are an upgraded member of the Substack, then get in contact and we'll work out a way of upgrading you onto the online course. So let's talk about juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So we have 5 main subtypes, and to be honest, you could break those subtypes down into an absolute load of their own subtypes within it, but we're just going to talk generally about the 5 main subtypes in this webinar, just so that it does not go on for weeks and months of me just listing various different variations of similar problems. So the 5 main subtypes are oligoarticular, which would be just 1 or 2 joints affected by inflammatory arthritis, compared to polyarticular, which is 5 or more joints being affected by the inflammatory arthritis. And as we'll go on to talk about in a minute, the prevalence is sort of flipped in the juvenile population comparative to the adult population, where adults typically will get polyarticular arthritis, whereas the predominant volume in juvenile idiopathic arthritis would be oligoarticular. We then have spondyloarthritis, which is mostly going to be axial, but with some peripheral, and then that's broken down further. We also will see psoriatic arthritis in the juvenile idiopathic arthritis population, and the reason that they don't typically separate those out in the adult population, but the reason they do in the juvenile population is, as we go on to talk about it later, there are some slight differences again in prevalence, age of onset. And then finally, systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis, previously known as Still's disease. That is the sort of the 5th category. So as physiotherapists or musculoskeletal therapists, the most common that we are going to see by far in this population is going to be oligoarticular, followed probably by the spondyloarthritis population. And there was very, very few. We're not really going to see this systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis, not undiagnosed anyway. They're predominantly going to be presenting to primary care or urgent care with things like fevers and feeling unwell. So they're not really coming to the musculoskeletal department, which is obviously where my skill set lies, not really within the assessment of things like fevers. So we aren't going to talk about those quite so much. So those are the 5 main subtypes. Of course, with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, we are typically talking about children, so there are some complicating factors that come along with those. That's outside of the scope of this webinar, but you know, there are some differences between children and adults. If that's news to you, then sorry about that. But typically, that would sort of be defined as under 18. However, there is some blurring of the lines. You can see some sort of 16-year-olds or even younger developing more adult presentations of the types of arthritis, and then you can see up to 21 the development of more of a juvenile idiopathic arthritis, looking picture, and systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis certainly will affect, rarely, but certainly will affect people into their 20s as well. So it isn't hard and fast. If it's under 18, it's this. If it's over 18, it's that. So we're typically going to be looking really in younger children, and then you really need a good understanding of the adult presentations as well once you're starting to assess teenagers, young adults. So we do, as per usual, have a female predominant presentation, and that's going to occur in all of the subtypes, particularly the polyarticular, which is going to really look like a rheumatoid arthritic presentation. Then still more prevalent in the oligoarticular population. Don't forget the oligoarticular and the polyarticular are going to make up 70-80% of all of the presentations. So you're really looking at female predominance in the juvenile population. The only difference will be the axial population, where we will see more males. And then the psoriatic arthritis, we again flip back to about twice as many females as males, and then the systemic is about even. So we do still have this heavy female predominance throughout all of the different subtypes, or most of the different subtypes, apart from that axial spondyloarthritis.